Okay, I'm going to talk to you about the driving theory test. Now, ever since the requirement to pass a theory test was introduced, the year-on-year pass rate for this exam has been disappointingly low. Unlike the practical test, the pass rate for female candidates is higher than that of their male counterparts. This definitely follows the same pattern as GCSE and A-level results, where girls seem to outperform boys mainly due to their willingness to retain information by study and revision. Another concern that has been discussed is once the theory test is passed, how well does a student actually understand and how well are they able to apply the information that they've stored into real-life driving scenarios. Some of this is understandable due to the amount of information and knowledge required to be fully up to speed with what they are likely to come across as they answer questions from a very large question bank. Like any other academic subject, there will always be variations in how people efficiently store information and the cognitive ability to gain understanding of the subject matter. A commonly used phrase from the age group who learned before the theory test was brought in is "we didn't have phone apps. We had to read the highway code from cover to cover." Speaking as someone who's from that age group, I did look at the highway code, but I didn't consider myself to be a text-based learner. Most of my true knowledge has been gained through years of road experience. I honestly believe that I got lucky when answering questions from a flip chart that I was asked at the end of my practical test. I remember getting a couple of them wrong without my overall result being affected. Fast forward 20 years to when I set my ADI Part 1, which is a theory test for driving instructors. The revision I needed was relatively easy due to the experience that I gained on a daily basis just through general driving. I had to learn the instructor-based knowledge that I needed, as well as picking up on how they want you to think when choosing answers to the more situational-based multiple questions. I soon figured out that it was structured in a way that promotes thinking about safety. Now, what I mean by that is if you come across a question that seems to have more than one answer, if you look at the one that relates most towards safety, then that will be a correct answer in most cases. When teaching practical skills as instructors, we're quite rightly encouraged to adapt our training methods to suit each individual learner. An analogy I remember hearing when early in my career was that we should look in our proverbial toolbox. Different methods of teaching are the tools that we use. So, for example, people thrive better on being instructors. Some people can actually respond to like thought-provoking questions, coaching. So when one method doesn't work, we find another tool in our box which will hopefully be more effective. With experience, we select the correct tool sooner. By the same analogy, theory test training also needs a variation in approach, not only to store information, but to equip the student with the understanding to help them continue on their lifelong learning path, because it is a lifelong learning path. I mean, the theory test is a good benchmark, and it's a very good benchmark, and I do believe that from that the new drivers do have a better knowledge going into it if they actually understand what they've been learning. As we all know, the question bank is based on information found in the Highway Code, another book called Driving the Essential Skills, and Know Your Traffic Signs, which really talks about traffic signs and road markings, that kind of thing, in a lot of detail. I'd be very, very interested to see, though, what percentage of our population are truly book smart. The ability to absorb large amounts of information from books alone is something, in my opinion, that takes an intellectual capacity which some potentially good drivers will not have. Therefore, other tools may be necessary to supplement learning. I use the word supplement because use of revision apps alone may result in a shortfall of the required understanding. Having said that, rote learning does have its place. I see nothing wrong with getting the information stored, some of which might already be in place. The incorrect answers can be invaluable in identifying what to look up in the aforementioned books. with a view to bridging gaps in the pupil's knowledge and understanding. Over the years I've had many students who I've not had to worry about when I see their practice scores on Theory Test Pro, which is a theory test app that they can use, and I can log into it to see what they've been practicing, and then I can give them the help that they need. I can tell when the confidence is there, and sometimes I can tell when it's not. Going back to practical skills, there are some students who need more help with issues such as spatial awareness, physical coordination. I help with these issues, so why wouldn't I help someone who is not naturally adept at absorbing and understanding theoretical information? When a pupil appears to make no effort with their theory revision, I always ask why. It would be too easy to say that that person's just lazy. I'm not denying in some cases that that's true. After all, I've been a teenager myself. When they fail a theory test and give me the line that they were 2 or 3 marks off a pass, I always ask if they're looking to achieve the highest score possible. Also explaining that trying to wing a pass not only wastes money, but leaving too many gaps in your knowledge can come with its dangers. There have been times when that has happened, and I've given them some questions to answer. I then realised that in some cases it can be down to confidence, sometimes a perceived feeling of appearing stupid through lacking knowledge. The fact of the matter is, though, that I'm not here to pass judgment on individual academic levels. My own aren't fantastic. My job is to give the necessary help without judgment or prejudice. If a lesson has to take place without the car being moved in order to help an individual, I'd rather do that than keep seeing them hinder their progress and lose focus through repeatedly failing. I also don't mind anybody getting in touch with me to do theory practice by video call. I've offered that service, I've done that for people. Much of the required information can also be made more sense of through lesson content. For this reason, I believe that taking the theory test somewhere around the halfway stage of their practical learning can also help with knowledge and confidence. So for example, I think a lot of true knowledge comes from experience. You can look at books, you can use revision apps, but there's only so much of that you're going to truly understand unless you've been in that practical situation. So it's not ideal. I don't think any theory exam will be ideal, but it is a good starting point. And I suppose, you may learn some things and you might get into a situation where you think, oh yeah, I remember that from my theory test. That does make sense now. So yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons, but there's more pros than cons. Whichever way you look at it, the journey to gaining a full licence is something that shouldn't be taken lightly. I do come across a lot of students who don't really want to do the theory test. They might not be interested. Very few though. I mean, they are in a minority. But what I'd say to these people is that learning to drive is a privilege that has to be worked for by both pupil and instructor.